Hello and welcome to another Tuesday here at the OneRing.net. I'm Chelsea and this is...
Hello, Clifford. That's my name.
Hello, Clifford?
If I remember properly. You know, actually, that reminds me of that jazz song, I Remember Clifford.
Yeah, I don't think I know that.
It's a super famous jazz piano piece with other instruments. It's called I Remember Clifford. Anyways, I remember my own name.
I don't remember Clifford.
Okay, well, anyways, hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Actually, I'm so glad to be here on Torn Tuesday.
Yes, live from Scum and Villainy Cantina right here in Hollywood.
Nice to see you, Chelsea.
You too, Cliff.
Lovely to see you. This is the day, everybody.
This is the
How
day
you doing?
that Cliff has been waiting for about 8 months or so.
37 years.
Well, that as well. But since
37 years.
since they gave us the release date, you've been waiting to see it so you could talk about it because the Dark Crystal series is here.
Yes. All Tolkien fans and all Lord of the Rings and Hobbit fans, especially those of a certain generation, have touched down with other classic fantasy stories that we've all embraced. Narnia, first among them.
Yeah.
Harry Potter.
Harry
also
Potter,
among them.
which speaking of Potter, somebody just asked in the chat room if you or I play Harry Potter Wizards Unite, which I do. Do you?
No, I do not.
Oh, it's the Pokemon Go for Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. I've heard it's really, really fun. But hello, live chat room. The thing is that, we're going to talk about the Dark Crystal because of the obvious overlap that the story of Frodo and his quest has some interesting analogies to the story of Jen, as the narrator in the film calls it,
Yes.
the journey of Jen. And we're going to look at the impact of this fantasy series that has just been relaunched this past August 30th by Netflix, this extraordinary new 10-episode series
Yes.
called Age of Resistance, which is the revival of Jim Henson's unique
Dark
film
Crystal.
creation from 37 years ago, The Dark Crystal. But we're going to talk about it, especially in relation with how you make a big, successful revival of a fantasy series for a streaming audience. If
Well, so
Amazon
far-
is taking notes, Amazon better be taking notes.
They're definitely
at
taking
how
notes.
Netflix has handled
I mean, especially
this.
just look at our chat room right now.
my goodness.
Every single person. Oh my God, the series is so good. Chelsea and Cliff, I binge watched all of the episodes in 2 days. Like everybody binged with us this weekend so we could all talk about it. Everyone's excited.
Oh, yes, that's right. Me too. Hello, Arowana. Hello, Shad. And hello.
Pipsky.
There's Jamie. There's Nigel. Hello, Nigel. And there's Ellen. I love you, Ellen. Solo. And there's Sarah. All of our lovely friends. And hey, there's my buddy from Wales. There's Kieran. Good to see you, Kieran.
So
And
many amazing
Pipsky.
people have
Now,
joined
the,
us.
The live chat, I expect to see this enthusiasm from. You guys want to join us? It is a live show. As I'd love to remind you, every Tuesday, you get to join us on the chat, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter Live, or whatever. Join us. And there's even a phone
I don't
number.
know why. When you just started
phone
listing
number.
everything, I thought you were about to say Tinder, and it made total sense to me. And then I was like, wait, Tinder's not a place
Why-
that we broadcast.
But
Why
we
would that
should.
be a thing? Why?
We should.
Wait.
Because there's a lot of single people who like the Lord of the Rings. Why not?
A lot of single nerds. I love
There's
it.
a lot of single nerds. But I mean, if there was a
Like
nerd,
myself.
if there was a Lord of the Rings dating site, we should. The OneRing.net should do
like
that.
guys should definitely
Mouse
facilitate
Mingle,
that.
but for Tolkien fans, I like it.
Mouse Mingle. What's that?
It's the Disney dating site.
Oh, is there really such a
Mouse Mingle.
thing? Mouse Mingle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling a tingle in my mingle right now. I love it. No, seriously, guys, there is so much great energy, and I love to have you guys with us in this interactive chat. Chelsea and I are here for you. We also have a very special guest from Stranger Comics.
How's it going, guys?
Hello there, Daryl. It's so good
Good.
to see you.
Good to see you
You're-
guys again.
You're head of the art department. What?
I am the art director and chief creative officer of
You're
Stranger
the art
Comics.
director at
So-
Stranger Comics,
Yep.
which also, coincidentally, congratulations, just made a huge deal with HBO.
Yes, we did.
To bring your wonderful fictional world of Asunda.
Yes.
Which is brought to life in in Stranger Comics, in particular in the first series,
The Untamed.
The Untamed.
Which Seb would have loved to have been here tonight, but he is not feeling well.
A reference
And he's
to
working on the
Sebastian.
pilot.
Mr. Sebastian Jones, right?
Yeah.
Yes, no, he's working. He's working on the
Yes.
show. So we're going to talk about your show. We're going to talk about Amazon's approach to Lord of the Rings. But we'll begin with how Netflix managed to bring
the Dark Crystal.
The Dark Crystal back. And how did they do it? What's your first impression, Chelsea?
All right.
I'm
so
dying to know what you think. You know
my
what
first
I think.
impression. I know you loved it. You tweeted about it. I mean, I tweeted
loved
some
it.
things as well.
I loved it so
Let
much.
me preface everything I'm going to say so that this compliment really just sticks.
Oh my goodness.
I did not like the movie growing up. I was terrified of the Dark Crystal, and so when they announced that like the series was coming, I was like, okay. And then
Okay.
and
That's
then
fair.
and then I thought about it, and I went, you know what? I could understand those puppets being terrifying as a child. You might really like this as an adult. And then I got like excited for like a new fantasy series, and I watched that first episode at Comic-Con, and I was like, this world is building is beautiful. The voice casting is phenomenal. Like, I can't wait to see where it goes. And then I watched everything this weekend, and I loved it.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
You too.
Oh
Daryl.
yeah. Oh yeah. I absolutely loved it. The original movie, the soundtrack is in my top 10 of all time. And
Trevor Horn.
so good. I
South
draw
African
to it all the
composer
time.
Trevor Horn.
It's so good. And then the master between the relationship of Brian Froud and Jim Henson, just perfection.
I also just love so
Yeah.
much that Brian was the baby in Labyrinth and is now grown up and stayed in the Jim Henson family and helped create this Dark Crystal series. It's amazing.
Yeah, I loved it. I watched it with my girlfriend and we absolutely loved it. It was awesome.
Quite surprising. I'm gonna say to everyone, you've seen my Twitter feed at QuickBeam2000, but let me say this live on the air. It is a minefield that they managed to navigate. So many things that they could have done wrong on this series, and I only found one. I only found one unnecessary gross out joke when the rest of it was just perfection. And you know the one I'm talking about.
I know the one you're talking
which one?
about.
When Skek Ayuk, the Gormand, decides to relieve himself in the hallway of the castle. That was the only one thing that was like, what? Okay.
Yes.
But otherwise, now that I've got that one stupid little complaint out of the way, and it's not like, it's not like we haven't seen pee jokes before. I mean, in Labyrinth, the first thing that Hoggle is doing
is
when
peeing.
Jennifer Connelly comes up, walks, and, introduces herself, he's busy taking a leak.
Yep, it's
so
true.
why should I complain? Maybe I shouldn't.
You know,
Anyways.
it had, to
Maybe I
me,
should.
the gross aspects of it just brought me back to the 80s where they would do and take those kinds of risks in a child's program like that. Like, to me, the grossness of the Dark Crystal just harkened me back to a time when we were younger.
Yep.
You just don't see that in children's programming essentially today.
They
like
definitely
you did.
stayed true to so much of what was there in the movie, which is really incredible. That Netflix, for those of you that don't know, spent 5 years with Henson Studios developing and producing this content, filming it, and then in post. It wasn't 5 years of negotiations. It was like a 3-month conversation of we want to do this. Yeah, we do. Okay, here's the money. It was really quick. And then 5 years of production time.
What was their budget? Do you guys know by chance?
I don't know the budget, but I do know that they started with, I think it was something like 17 sets, and it grew to 72.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And also, Ellen, you're right. Toby is the baby in Labyrinth. Brian and Wendy's son, but Toby worked on Dark Crystal series as well with Brian. He followed the family tradition, which Brian was involved in the original.
Yeah, you see that in the
back
making
the
of
day.
it. Yeah, you see that in the making of it.
Yes, hello there, Neil. Yes, my friend, we are broadcasting live from your friendly neighborhood geek bar, Scum and Villainy Cantina, here in Hollywood, California. And the grotesqueness. There's a place for the grotesque in fantasy. It's seen in the late 1930s when Disney released Fantasia. And you get that segment from Mussorgsky, which is Night on Bald Mountain. And we're talking about demons from the underworld. And they went for something grotesque. There was even some of the harpies, the phantom ghost-like harpies, have been edited out because their breasts were exposed in the animation as these harpies flew past the camera. And there are really grotesque, somewhat Skeksis-looking creatures dancing in the flames in Chernabog's hand.
Yes.
Grotesquerie certainly has earned its place in fantasy and in animation for decades and decades, and yet we did get to a point where things now in children's programming are so sanitized.
Yes.
Remember when there was such a big deal made about the animated Batman movie that came out with a rated R rating because the Joker kills a lead character.
Yeah,
kills a side character.
it's Barbara Gordon.
Yeah, it's
I
yes,
believe.
yes.
Yeah, it's a very grotesque killing in the comics,
Yes,
or at least a maiming. She survives it, but it's bad.
It's not the Killing Joke. It's one of the previous films that got an R rating.
Okay.
So it's like that was when the conversation I think really came to me.
Okay.
Like, are we ready to take film or products for kids, like an animated Batman story, and take it to a harder place, more grotesque, more violent, maybe? And in the new Jim Henson Age of Resistance Dark Crystal series, they are unafraid to show such cruelty from the Skeksis. Yeah. The Grunaks are treated with such unbelievable cruelty.
Yeah.
Honestly,
that I almost wept.
there
for
was
them.
a lot of moments that it reminded me of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a lot of places. Yeah. I even felt like there was an Arya storyline going on with like Brea coming into like her own too.
Yeah, yes, I like that. I like that you mentioned that. There is a richness to this tapestry, while in the 1982 film is kind of straightforward. Maybe some people say it's rather simplistic in the way it presents its metaphysical ideas. There's a lot of metaphysics going on in the Dark Crystal. And they
Which
don't...
I loved.
Yeah,
Mother Orgra was giving me life.
Yes,
and and when she died, I was like, wait, I have to go 2 episodes without any more Mother Orgra because I need more of her in my life.
Spoiler.
But maybe she comes back. I don't know. I didn't spoil everything. And obviously, if you've seen the movie,
you know she's alive.
This is supposed to come before the movie, so
there's added things to the story, and there are things that they complemented to the original theme in the original artistry of the original. This new series, I think, is most successful in navigating the most difficult line, satisfying the past and expanding this world and making this story open up for more.
And what I will tell you that they did an even more amazing job with that goes back to the original movie for me was the Skeksis scared the crap out of me as a child. And when I was like early 20s and I went to the Jim Henson Studios for my first time, and my brother was a sound artist and was working on a video game in the We Are the World soundstage that's at Henson Studios. We were walking around the studios and they had a Skeksis sitting just in the corner of the lobby. And I like flipped out and was like, I'm not going in there. And my brother's like, there's no one in the puppet. The puppet's not alive. It's just like a prop. And I was like, I'm not going in there. So then here I am. 2019, I'm 36, and I'm watching Dark Crystal this weekend. And whenever it was only the Skeksis on the screen, I would have panic attacks. I literally had to keep pausing the show and walking away for a minute and come back and being like, it's just a show. It's okay. You can watch this now. It was fine if it was just Mark Hamill's character because I heard Mark do the voice in person. And then I had that visual in my head. But otherwise, for the rest of the Skeksis, I was just like, they create so much anxiety for me. I can't do it.
How about, and now our character voices are brought to us by Mark Hamill, Simon Pegg, Keegan Michael Key, who plays the Ritual Master, unbelievably. And then, big surprise, this tiny little girl, Aquafina, who is the voice of Skek Locke, the Collector, with all the pustules dripping all over her face.
Which was
is she
disgusting.
the one that's obsessed with beauty?
No, that is the ornamentalist. That's a different.
Okay.
No, she's the one who talks like this.
Okay.
She was actually really hard to watch. It was so gross.
Yeah, it was really
It was
gross.
really hard to watch.
Yeah.
Do you see
that
this
was
face?
Aquafina?
This face was once beautiful.
Aquafina that's going to be in the new Shang-Chi movie?
Yes, that's right. And then she says, and then came knowledge. There are lots of bon mots and little one-liners, kind of like the kind we got in the original 1982 film, where she has a great line that says, "Prophets don't know everything." And there's other fun lines.
Nefarious was used quite a bit.
Nefarious.
I was counting that.
Yes. And
I say it a lot.
And, the Skek Ak, the Scroll Keeper, sees Princess Brea down on the ground. I love Skek Ak. And the Scroll Keeper says, "Be careful. Little things have a habit of being stepped on by big things." And there's this little, euphemism, bon mots that are actually telling us deeper layers of the narrative and the thematic story of how politically people can be misled by the powers
What
that
was
be
really amazing to
without
me
looking at the truth that's
is
happening
that the
right in front of them.
Skeksis never actually tried to hide their plan ever. Like, even in that statement alone, they're already showing who they are.
Indeed.
You know, and
Always.
yet all of the Gelflings and nothing, just everybody was like, yes, my lords, like not even noticing at all. And I was like, they were never hiding it from any of you.
It's funny. It's funny to find this weird relationship where the Gelfling are actually having an agreeable, amenable relationship with the Skeksis, but we're in a world 100 years about before the events of the film. And there are 7 tribes of the Gelfling. And each one of these tribes across the planet are ruled by matriarchal society. And they have a Maudra, who is, the matriarch, who is the head of the clan. And then here comes Helena Bonham Carter as the All-Maudra, living in the mountain city of Harar. And she is the leader of all the Maudras, of all the clans. And there are Game of Thrones moments of surprise, betrayal, political turnaround, and then, of course, like left and right, characters you love suddenly dying. Sorry to say it, but we're in that world now. Maybe if Game of Thrones didn't kill off so many favorite characters, maybe the Dark Crystal wouldn't be so busy doing the same. Yeah. But here it is, guys, a 37-year-old fantasy franchise, and it has been brought back to life.
People die. Like,
Yes.
Game of Thrones didn't invent people dying. It's just for some reason we never talk about those things, and now we talk about those things.
Well, in the original film, plenty of lead characters die. Even the lead character. But I'm not spoiling it.
Spoiler alert.
No spoiling it. That movie's 37 years old. Not spoiling it.
The lead character. Wait, Mufasa dies?
Oh, no. Okay, all right. Okay, does Sean Bean die a lot? You know what? It would have been great if Sean Bean had voiced one of the Gelflings
That
and
died?
died.
That would have been amazing.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my God.
Show us that. Show us that there. That is Sean Bean from The Untamed. Now, I'm going to show you guys, right, since we're showing some visual art, take a look.
Well, before we get into the visual show and tell, though, can we just talk about the podlings?
Oh, no, yes. Hup is my favorite paladin.
Right?
My paladin with a spoon.
With a
He was awesome.
Hup is the greatest character.
It was like my spirit animal. It's fantastic.
Okay, this book that Daryl is holding up, that first one was the original 1982 paperback novelization of the original film, The Dark Crystal. And it was written by A.C.H. Smith. And there, now, Daryl is showing this very rare, out-of-print Brian Froud book. And it is a coffee table book called The World of the Dark Crystal. And it contains the most complete, like early references to all the characters that he designed and the history of Mother Aughra. It's just so cool. It's so cool. You got to check that out. Oh no, Pipsquay. Did you lose one of your little ones? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
That is
so
very,
I had to
very
interrupt for a
sad.
second when I just saw that in the chat room. It breaks my heart.
Oh no. That's
Pipsquay
very
tweets us
sad.
like pictures daily of her kitties, so it was very sad.
That's really, really, really sad. Over time, those wounds are really, really long to heal. Losing a dog or a cat
Daryl,
is like
you
losing
have
a
a
child.
fan in the chat room
Sad.
that says, Daryl, I am so proud of you, with a heart. It looks like a dawn.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Don.
You know what?
If you see me and Cliff leaning in and squinting a lot, it's the world's smallest font today for the chat room. And
the world's tiniest font. But I'm. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, we'll get to that in a second. My heart goes to you, Pipsquay. I'm going to send you a lot of love. I'm going to send some thoughts your way, and hopefully you'll be all right. I know you'll be all right. But here you are. You're among family now, and we're all together in this. So it's time to talk about the success that Netflix now has on their hands, and how is Amazon going to replicate that? Since we had a lot of question marks, we didn't know the quality of this material, but here's the connection. Netflix took a gamble to spend a lot of money on a legacy project that has a lot of what you'd call burden, a lot of attachments.
Yes.
All of us as fans really, really very much attached to the Dark Crystal. And they pulled it off beautifully by having a great team of writers and being dedicated to the production process of physical effects, practical effects, and real puppetry.
And you know, Taron actually visited the set and was there for a lot of the filming. He didn't want to just be a voice actor in a studio.
Oh, yeah.
Taron Egerton, who plays Rianne.
Yes. Oh, and to respond to someone in the chat, yes, I do think there's a strong possibility that Rianne is related to Jen, because I think they're both of the Stonewood clan. There's a symbol that Jen is wearing that's in his clothing, and it reminds me very, very much of the symbol of the Stonewood clan. And most notably, when you're at the location in the story of Age of Resistance, and you're with the Maudra, and Rianne is trying to convince the Maudra of the Stonewood clan about the threat the Skeksis genuinely hold. No one believes him. You notice the throne that she is sitting on? The Maudra is sitting on the same throne that is found at the houses of the old ones in the film, and where Kira takes a seat on the same throne. And looking for just a minute, so regal as if she herself could be a regal Maudra herself. So I think if you're looking really closely, there are connective tissue between the old property and the new series. So if Amazon wants to do the same thing, they can drop in, successfully drop in little, references, little visual clues, even a famous piece of furniture, or like a famous thing, a statue, something that's in the shot. But what it all comes down to is story, 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 story. Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
There's so much about this new series that not just honors the original, but expands the lore and the world of the original.
And visually, they hearkened back to the original series and Brian Froud's artwork. It's a real testament, in my opinion, for the design. When you look at guys like Alan Lee and John Howe, the masters of the Lord of the Rings franchise, Brian Froud is that to this. And what I saw was my childhood come to life when I was 5 years old, watching Labyrinth, watching The Dark Crystal. I had all the feels with all the improvements of storytelling and technology behind it. And for me, the selling point was Brian Froud. If they had changed the Gelflings too much, or if they had just not used him to that capacity, I think it would have affected it in a big way.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of voices that we hear every week when we do our live show, and they say, we'd really like to have some refreshing new take on Middle-earth. But I think that your words should be heard today. If it was too much of a departure from the 6 films of Middle-earth, if Amazon goes too far afield away from John Howe and Alan Lee's Oscar-winning design, not to mention the weapons and costumes created by Nyla Dixon, Oscar winner Nyla Dixon. Let me just say that again, okay? All these people won those mountains and mountains of Oscars.
What about the brothers Hildebrandt?
So if the new Amazon series abandons all reason for madness, then we, the fans, are going to be the first one to say, since when does Amazon the Wise abandon reason for madness? You can't abandon, and they didn't with the Jim Henson Project. They kept so much fidelity purposefully to the original. Maybe Amazon would benefit, do you think, from keeping a lot of visual and design fidelity? What do you think? It's kind of like we don't know how far astray they really want to go with their new
If
series.
it were me and I was an executive at Amazon, we'd be doing nothing but exploring all the ancient Silmarillion stuff about the Numenorians.
If you had the license,
if you had the license for it, that's what I'd be pushing for. There's such a wealth of storytelling there in the Silmarillion, and to have John Howe and Alan Lee's take on that would just be amazing. To see Ungoliant fighting Morgoth for the Silmarils, it would just be amazing. That's what I want in an Amazon series.
You're making me thirsty. I want that too.
We got an excellent question in our YouTube chat. It said, I've never seen the movie Dark Crystal. Do you recommend watching that first? I will tell you, I have not seen the movie since I was 4 or 5 years old, and I did not need to see it to watch the series this weekend. Also, this takes place many years before the movie, so you don't need the movie for context at all. So yes, go watch the series if you want to.
And I
hello.
recommend the movie. It's awesome.
Hello,
Yeah.
Monica. To answer your question as well, the original movie has a secret mystery of interconnectivity that you learn gently through watching the film. I will not spoil it. However, the new Netflix series makes it very explicit and talks about the lore and the background of those characters so explicitly. That's because it presumes you already know the movie from 37 years ago. If you go and watch the series first, it will spoil that mystery that unfolds so quietly, because the original film is a spiritual meditation on yin and yang. It is a spiritual meditation on transcending the physical self and traveling to other places beyond, which is what happens at the very, very end of the Dark Crystal film. And you start to realize there might be other crystals on other planets where they can travel and go from place to place to place. This is why Agra is using her mind to travel among the stars and learn these secrets, because this is what she's all about, learning the secrets.
Yeah.
Agra is the new Gandalf. They have written her character to act and behave in very archetypal Gandalf ways. She even does a thing in the new series, like when Gandalf comes in to see Theoden and says, "Hey, wake up. Snap out of it, Theoden. The world is at your door. War is upon you, whether you like it or not. Wake up." And he heals Theoden, and he's doing what Gandalf does. He's trying to inspire the free people to the fight. And Agra goes around in the series equally trying to convince leaders and rulers.
And mystics.
And mystics do the Gandalf thing. And it's just so cool. It's just so cool to hear those echoes of Tolkien and his archetypal character, Gandalf, echoes in Agra, the All-Mother
And in
of
my
Thra.
stuff. You can't escape it.
And
Can't
now
escape it.
let's get into let's transition if we can. All right. I want to ask your thoughts, Chelsea, because there's a lot of money at stake. Amazon is ready to give us a revisit to Middle Earth. What do you think they can learn from Netflix's success right here, right now? In terms of marketing, I think Netflix maybe benefited from keeping a lot of it really close to their vest. They did. They didn't. We didn't get to see a lot of the production or behind-the-scenes stuff. Now they even give us a feature-length, hour-and-a-half making-of documentary. It's called The Crystal
that
Calls.
dropped with the series.
It came right out with the series. Yeah. So what do you think? I think it was really well handled by Netflix. Really well handled.
I don't know. I think I need more time with that question. I definitely wanted more from Netflix. There was definitely a lot more that people didn't realize happened beforehand, too. They had a full exhibition for the last month in different cities as well, where you could go through and see the worlds and a lot of the puppets and stuff that they had.
Yeah.
Most people weren't talking about it. A lot of people thought there was bigger noise to be made about Dark Crystal because they thought there was more Dark Crystal fans, but there really wasn't. It's like a cult following, but then became mainstream with this release. So what I thought was very interesting was I'm on newsletter lists for like The Nerdist, Geek and Sundry, all sorts of like nerdy sites. I get Hot Topics newsletter, Box Lunch, whatever. And Saturday or Sunday, not Friday when it came out, I started to see newsletters drop about, well, you need to be watching The Dark Crystal. And the other show that dropped at the same time was Carnival Row, and nobody was talking about Carnival Row, but everybody was talking about Dark Crystal. And I think whatever Netflix did just brought a mainstream awareness to Dark Crystal.
Indeed.
Their marketing train was pretty out of control at Comic-Con.
Yes,
they had
it was
a train.
everywhere.
They had the train was painted with Dark Crystal. It was everywhere. I really feel like they pushed the marketing on this quite a bit.
They did.
Towards the end, right before we saw it, starting around July,
They did.
I started seeing it everywhere.
There are billboards all over Hollywood. There's one a block away here at Vine, right here, the famous intersection of Hollywood and Vine. Go a block south, and there's an 8-story Dark Crystal mega banner.
I mean,
sign. It's
also at
unbelievable.
Comic-Con, I had my essence drained, and I was given a shard of the crystal.
No.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Really?
so cool.
Yeah, I had my essence drained in their booth. I was given a shard of the crystal that lights up purple. It's great.
my whole team and I, we wanted to get over there, but the lines were so bad at Comic-Con this year for the Dark Crystal booth, just to go in and experience it.
Oh, it was
there's
so
no
cool.
way we could get away from our booth.
It was 3 small little rooms. I was like, you dream fast in one of them, you talk to the Century Tree in the other one, and then you walk into the Dark
Skeksis
Crystal.
lair.
I was like, but you're just in front of the Crystal of Truth. I was like, that's all it is. It's just a photo op.
And then they drain you of your essence, and it's
and
gone
then they drain you
forever.
of your essence.
That is hilarious.
That's
okay,
awesome.
One of my biggest impressions with the new Age of Resistance series is that even a character like Lore, who I thought immediately, oh, that's a CGI animated character. Out of all the other puppets, suddenly there's a CGI creature. Well, then I realized they did performance capture over the puppeteers to make sure that their CGI would not look too polished and perfect. They wanted to capture the eccentricities.
And it looked amazing.
Yes, and it looked amazing.
It did.
It was like, let's make the CGI help erase the puppeteers who are in these bizarre blue screen outfits, and they literally had the life-size puppet of Lore, but they did what you call CGI glitter, a little polish. Now, there are other
Hey,
YouTube videos
I wanted to
suddenly
ask
appearing
about the art-
where they're talking about augmented puppetry versus standard puppetry. Because now we have Skeksis tongues, and we have eyelids and eyebrows.
Which
on the
those
Gelfling.
tongues were intense on the Skeksis. Like there was some moments with the Emperor where I was like, please take that tongue away from me. Like
Stop
what
it.
is this?
Yeah, it was like really, like suddenly you're looking at and you can't figure out sometimes whether the puppet has a servo motor underneath the latex making the eyebrows move, or whether it was the CG artist who was just putting a little sparkle on the end of it. Whatever they did. CGI enhancement. Yeah, I was just so blown away by it. And I think Jim Henson would have been so proud and would have loved the energy and the compassion.
Yeah.
The biggest hold on, let me say this. The biggest ingredient to the success the biggest ingredient to this success,
You're good.
I think, was that there was one vision, one director, Louis Leterrier, who directed all of it. He did the Steadicam operations for all 10 episodes and the editing, and was on it. He was the Peter Jackson equivalent for Age of Resistance.
Awesome.
And if there is an equal analogy, a creative person who is running the energy of the Amazon show, then that might also benefit their production by centralizing the focus of one person's vision. And that helps to filter. You filter all the other departments and production and design and art department and costumes, filter that through that one director, and he or she will have the energy to keep it all together. I think that was a big ingredient to their success.
Now,
was that Louis Leterrier, he ran that engine for that whole show.
well, there's
And it shows.
that, but I also just feel like, and I'm really excited for this, but the puppeteer community is dying. And this was such an amazing chance for people to dust off their skills and get back into this production full time for a while. And
They deserve to
employed
die. They had their moment. It's time to move on.
I don't agree.
No.
And I think this is a skill set that, like, unfortunately, I know there's people coming up that want to be puppeteers and they feel hopeless that there isn't a job for them. And I'm really excited that this show employed so many people that got to like do what it is they love as technologies keep changing and people find themselves out of a job. So I think that was also part of it, is that you genuinely got a lot of people excited to be at their job.
If anybody heard that horrifying gravelly voice in the distance, in the background, that was our own personal Skeksis, Justin, who is hiding in the control room.
Everyone's booing Justin in the chat room right now. So.
Justin, and even you have to admit, you prefer Jim Henson's Creature Effects Workshop version of Jabba the Hutt way better than you like the digital version of Jabba the Hutt. So you can go eat a sandwich over in the corner somewhere. Jeez. I'm telling you, look.
Eat a sandwich in a corner.
Go eat a sandwich
That's
in
your
the corner.
punishment.
That's
Here's some food.
Look. You know what? The puppeteers and their craft cannot be forgotten. This is going to cause a renaissance in practical effects, because people are looking at the tangibility of the Gelfling. And even when you watch that behind-the-scenes documentary...
Well, everybody just kept thinking that CGI was the way because it's so realistic and it's so lifelike. And honestly, they got so... And it's cheap. I was like... But it's also... They just built an entire world that felt realistic. They just proved everybody wrong that this doesn't have to look like the Muppet Show, and there's nothing wrong with the Muppet Show.
And I can say that, like, they brought a tear to my eye with the last Star Wars movie because it was Puppet Yoda. Just because it was Puppet Yoda.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Puppet Yoda, thank you. I want to mention that guy, too. So here's what happens.
Ooh, I like this question, Cliff. Somebody in our chat room just said, Cliff and Chelsea, what if Gelflings existed in Middle Earth?
You know what? Wow, that would be so awesome. If the Gelflings existed in Middle Earth, then we'd have to change the cosmology here is that in Middle Earth, the people are related to the Valar back in Valinor, or in many cases, like the dwarves, they were created directly by the Valinor. Instead of, just being born accidentally on the side of a lake in the middle of the night, like the elves were. But in the world of Thra,
what if
there's no
Gelflings
Valar.
are like cousins to hobbits?
Okay, that sounds great to me. I'd love that.
That's enough, Dark Crystal.
So the thing is...
calm yourself, Justin.
They took the CGI test. When you watch the documentary, they said, let's combine a full puppet Skeksis with a purely CGI animated Gelfling. And it looked so weird. It didn't look right at all. At all. Then they decided to go and actually just make them real, physical puppets. Now, when the world...
I'm sorry. Troy in our chat room just said Justin's like the old guys that heckle the Muppets from the box seats.
Yeah.
Waldorf and Statler. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just Statler and Waldorf from back there. The fantasy world of Asunda is a beautiful, beautiful, detailed... built-in Lord of the Rings level fantasy world.
And it's not, and you could tell how much it wasn't green screen. It wasn't just here's puppets and some of a painted background we put on. You could feel the layers into those sets. It was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very, yeah. Thra has succeeded. We hope that Middle Earth will be reinvigorated.
Yes.
The way it's visually prepared. But in your world, in Stranger
Yes.
world, would you go for more practical effects? Do you want that your friends at HBO who are now going to be working with you guys making your series? Are you going to tell them now, after seeing Age of Resistance, let's stick with more practical effects?
I'm more of a practical effects guy. Like Kershak the Mute, as you've seen the orc in the Untamed is a albino orc.
Yes.
That needs to be done practically. And there's only one creature that I think would need to be computer generated. It's just too colossal, and that's the Ajoan monolith. And that's the Minotaur in the story. If it could be done right practically, yes. I'm always been a practical fan. Like Jabba the Hutt in a bunch of people operating in a suit is the way to go. The computer stuff, not into it.
Okay.
I would prefer practical all day long.
Me too. All right, let's go to Guillermo del Toro and Crimson Peak. The ghosts and the fantastic weird spirits that inhabit Crimson Peak, which is a lovely movie. Love that stuff. They were created as physical props and puppets first, and then they were filmed to be floating, bloody, ethereal things. Yeah. So how about at the end of
The Untamed?
Yes. Where the floating spirits are attacking?
Yep.
I would love to see those spirits realized like
that
puppets.
classic Indiana Jones.
Yes.
When the arc opens, it's to me that classic Ghostbuster stuff is terrifying. To me, it's just awesome. And I think Peter Jackson was really good about that with the Nazgul when Frodo put on the ring. Yeah. And the Nazgul became these spectral white entities that looked horrific. The horror on the makeup of their faces, not the computer generated stuff we saw on the third Hobbit film, but in Fellowship of the Ring when those were actors in prosthetics. To me, that just resonated infinitely more magical. Without
Very
question.
much so. Do you remember, but going back to the early 80s?
Cliff.
Oh, wait.
John in our chat room. I think my mic's going in and out here.
Mine was too.
John in the chat room. I'm envisioning Chelsea and Cliff as puppets doing a Lord of the Rings show.
I'm so down for that. I am so
I just think
down
that's an
for that.
amazing thought.
In the early 80s movie Poltergeist, directed by
Yep.
Tobe Hooper,
Yep.
which was actually directed by Steven Spielberg, but he didn't get the credit. There are some ghost effects that are puppets. In fact, there's one weird, crazy demon thing that reminds me
pops,
of one of the.
yeah.
It's in the hallway,
Yeah.
and Joe Beth Williams is screaming at it, saying, "My baby!" And this thing looks like a cross between a Skeksis and a Mystic, and it's an actual
Shout out to
physical
Will's
puppet.
mom.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, she is. No.
That's my best friend's mom, Joe Beth Williams.
I did not know there was a relation. I did not know that I have been talking to Joe Beth Williams' son all this time. You are freaking me out. That is so cool. That is so cool.
awesome.
But I mean, there's a place for this kind of grotesquerie,
Yes.
and this physical effects has now, I think, made us more aware of our appetite for it.
Yes.
And that's another thing.
Like I'll show you here on
Yeah.
the Untamed, the ferryman here. You'll see that spectral entity. That needs to be done practically. But those flowing robes are going to be kind of difficult without computer-generated technology, or you're going to shoot the figure underwater.
We're just a lot of fans.
Yes, a lot of fans in slow motion. No, but that's, to me, this is done practically. That's an actor or an actress
Yes.
in makeup there.
Yes.
I don't need to see that, computer generated. I'd prefer to see an actor.
Okay,
there,
this is
yeah.
the difference between Lurtz in original trilogy
Yes.
versus Azog, the
Yes.
pale orc, who is all CGI.
Which
Lurtz
is
was
literally what they were
terrifying.
talking about in the chat room at the
Lurtz
beginning of the
was
show.
terrifying in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lurtz was more terrifying and more real
Yep.
because he came out of that gross, stretchy birthing pod.
Yes.
That was Lawrence McElroy,
Yes.
a real
Yep,
actor
yep.
under the real goo.
Yep.
Pulling the
plop.
sword towards Aragorn.
I think our
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
eye
Yeah.
can easily tell when something is real and when something has been made computer generated. And so having that real actor in
Yeah.
those roles is of
Yes.
course more terrifying to all of us because we're like, that's a real thing that's happening, you know? Also, speaking of creepy things, why is it every fantasy series has to have a giant spider? What is that?
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not in my world.
Thank heavens for that.
All right, so in the world of the Untamed, no giant arachnid monster creatures.
No she-lobes, none of that.
No Arathim. Arathim getting.
Not yet, anyways.
No Arathim getting
Like,
pulled apart.
spoiler alert.
Yeah, no, we stick more towards dragons and unholy beasts from the pit of the Natheim.
Okay, let's talk about the Untamed. All right, for those who are just joining our audience right now, Daryl, the Untamed
Hey, everybody.
is a big fantasy story that is as big on just as big of a world stage as Middle Earth or Westeros and Esteros, and you guys are now getting into bed with a new deal
Yes.
with HBO
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
develop, and your intellectual property has now been snatched up
Yep.
by HBO, which is so exciting.
Yes,
I like
my
the
first
subtle
choice.
smile that was coming out of his face, like he's trying to contain his excitement.
Dude.
Guys, it's so weird because when Seb and I were first discussing The Untamed years ago, well over a decade, our first choice was HBO.
To the audience that
Oh,
doesn't know,
congratulations.
It's
That's
crazy.
amazing.
I don't get what I want, and I'm getting what I want. So, yeah. it's
we're
cool.
referring now to someone who's not here on stage with us. He is the founder of Stranger Comics and the original creator and co-writer of The Untamed.
He's
with-
the writer of The Untamed. Yeah,
and
he
he's the writer of The
created it.
Untamed.
Yep.
That is Sebastian Jones,
Yep.
who, as you guys, if you've been with us for the past 7 years on theonering.net, we have interviewed Sebastian many times because he's a hardcore ringer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was his deep, unabiding love for Arda and Valinor
Yes.
and everything in Tolkien's
Yeah.
cosmology that inspired him to become the writer he is today.
Yeah.
And that has inspired him to the point where he's created such a big world, HBO wants to get their fingers in the pie
Yes.
now. And
what's-
that's so
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool because
It's like the triumph
our
of
world
the
is
nerds.
huge.
The
Oh, yeah.
nerds are like rising.
Yeah. Our
you know?
world's
I love
very
it.
global with Asunda. That's the franchise that HBO has the keys to right now. And we wanted to not do the typical fantasy thing and go big. It's a one-horse town, like a spaghetti western, and it's an intimate place where we can introduce the audience at HBO our world. just piece by piece, and
One
then go
step at a
big
time.
and grow. Because, with Game of Thrones, it was massive.
Yes.
Worlds and kingdoms all over the place. Our world is that. But we're going to start you off small, and we're going to show you
I like that.
our
It's
version of our
sort
fantasy.
of like Westworld, focusing on
Yes.
the West and then
Deadwood.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a blast, and we couldn't be happier. Seb wanted to be here today. He's not feeling well, and plus he's under the gun of writing the pilot, so he wanted to be here. And him and I have yet to do it together on the podcast here.
Can't
and I
wait.
was hoping to have him right next to me.
That's an enviable place for
Yeah.
a creative man. He went from being a 12-year-old, like me, drawing maps of Middle-earth, and playing Dungeons & Dragons,
Yep.
and rolling his D20, and ended up becoming the creator of his own fantasy secondary world.
Yep,
That's
I'm
amazing.
Yep.
Great stuff.
Hey, you talked about Peter Stroud, right? Stroud?
We were talking about Brian Stroud.
Brian
Brian
Stroud.
Froud.
Oh, you mean Brian Froud?
Yeah.
Froud. You talked
Yeah.
about Froud. You
We
talked,
talked about
Alan Lee and
Yeah.
John
No.
Howe.
Yes.
How do you maintain your visual identity on
you're
TV?
you're the analogy, Daryl. You're the analogy to Brian Froud being the art director and the artist vision
Yes.
for creature designs in Thra, in the Dark Crystal. And of course, John Howe, Alan Lee being the primary team, working with Nyla Dixon, costume designer, and Richard Taylor's people to create that visual look. You're the guys in that seat now
Yes.
to create a visually consistent world
Yeah.
for The Untamed, which will be
Yeah.
the name of the series.
Yeah.
To recommend people begin, where do they begin to get their hard copy or to get a collected volume of Untamed so they can get a feel for this very Sean Bean inspired character that you have?
Well, just so everyone knows, if you're watching the OneRing.net today and this live broadcast where we're talking about our stuff and the Dark Crystal, if you pledge on my Kickstarter that's live right now, all you got to do is when you pledge on my Kickstarter, which is at www.niobekickstarter.com, or just go to Stranger Comics on Facebook, you'll see it everywhere.
The Niobe
Yes.
Kickstarter. Now, Niobe is another
Yeah.
big
She's
title,
the main
you guys.
character. Yeah,
She
she's
is
the main character in the
She's my
Untamed.
favorite character, co-created by Amandla Stenberg.
Yes, Sebastian created her years
Yes.
ago, and then the young actress Amandla wrote the Niobe She Is Life series
Yes.
for us. And we have Niobe She Is Death on the Kickstarter, but all of our books are available on the Kickstarter now at a great price. But everyone that backs the Kickstarter here, I have the Sean Bean lithograph that I brought with me today. If you pledge today and just say, I heard about this on the OneRing.net, we will mail you the Sean Bean version of The Stranger from the Untamed to you.
Wow. Okay. Sean Bean also an inspiration
Yes. Yeah.
in your world.
Yeah, and it's really cool because our lead character starts off dead and gets his revenge.
So for those out there that don't know how to spell your main character's name, they might have trouble finding the URL. Would you like to spell it out for
Yes,
everyone?
Niobe, Niobe.
So it's NiobeKickstarter.com?
Yes. And it's
You heard
on
it,
our
guys.
Stranger Comics, like Stranger Things, but Stranger Comics on Facebook and Instagram. You'll see the links. They're all there on Kickstarter.
And that is a Kickstarter not related to the HBO program. That's related just to the published
Yes.
books of
Yes.
Niobe, She Is Life.
It's the 2 new hardcovers of Niobe She Is Death, where Niobe's a badass bounty hunter hunting down human traffickers and slave traders. Then we have The Untamed Killing Floor, the sequel to The Untamed, A Sinner's Prayer.
Yes.
And the first issue of The Untamed, Still a Fool, my newest book that I'm doing with Sebastian and Peter Bergting, the artist that I've worked with on the last 2 projects.
Yes.
He's my Swedish friend who
He's
does
great.
all the artwork with me on that one.
I love
So,
Peter's work.
Yeah,
Now,
he's amazing.
Niobe exists in 2-story arcs. Niobe,
Multiples.
She
She's
Is
in
Life.
multiple stories,
And,
yeah.
well, I'm just
Yeah.
for the dichotomy. I'm mentioning so that I don't sound like I made a mistake.
No,
Or you don't.
yeah.
There's Niobe, She Is Life.
Yes.
And then Niobe, She Is Death.
Yep.
And other Niobe titles.
Niobe She Is Spirit
She Is Spirit.
will be the next one.
Was the next one? Oh, how
Yep.
cool!
Yep, I've already
How
started
cool.
some top secret development on that one as well. And then eventually down the line, when people in the HBO audiences and our comic book fans realize that Niobe is a savior to our fantasy world,
Yes.
Niobe, she is God.
Oh,
That's something that we're leading to, much more than just a Khaleesi or a Frodo or a Luke Skywalker or a Jen. Niobe is the offspring of a deity in our world. And so
Really?
it's growing quite
Caleb
exponentially.
wants to ask
that
you,
is
Daryl,
so cool.
what if they've already pledged, but they had initially heard about it from the One Ring?
Then they can just send us a direct message and we'll make sure they get their print.
Yep.
There you go, Caleb.
Yes, that's right, Caleb. Or send them a message. Now, oh, there you go. Troy found it.
Yes, and Ellen wrote out the spelling as well earlier. So if you're in the Facebook chat, links are being shared.
Yes, it is. This is really, really cool. Now, I want to know. I want to know everything, but I want to know it now. I want to know what Amazon.
Patience, young Padawan.
I know. I want to know what Amazon is doing, just as much as our friends who've joined us in the chat. On the hotline, somebody texted us a message and said,
What does it say?
Any confirmation? They're just looking for confirmation about Alan Lee being involved because it's John Howe who we have seen involved in the Amazon video press kit, thing that they made, which wasn't really made for the fans anyways.
Yeah.
It was, it was the one that Justin was so excited about that I wasn't entirely excited about. Hello there, Dave. I have your Dumbledore costume, but it's down the road. I got to get it for you. You know what? I wish you guys were here. I wish everyone in the audience on all these streaming platforms was with us in the room right now, because I can't tell you how excited I am. Amazon has so much more money than Netflix. Netflix passed on The Lord of the Rings entirely. Yes. They were dedicating their time and their resources
to Dark Crystal.
To the Dark Crystal, right.
Yeah.
And
they're like, we already got one big fantasy series.
And guess what? HBO passed. They said yes to your world of Asunda. They said no to Tolkien.
Well, I think...
Isn't that interesting?
It's humbling.
Honestly,
I'm
though...
so honored to be with HBO. It's still resonating, and I still pinch myself about it.
I think HBO would rather work with a young, developing story than work with a property that has so much restriction and red tape.
Indeed, it is a very unusual relationship to have a license that the family can veto and say, no, your television writers cannot go so far afield in the second age. But
you can talk about the appendices, but nothing from the Silmarillion.
We don't know anything about Alan Lee's specific involvement, and we know less than enough about how
that sounds like a Bilbo speech right then.
It does, yes.
Like
we know less than we should know about how John Howe and Tolkien scholar Tom Shippey are involved. But would you like to grab Alan Lee and have him start working with your team? If he's not busy working
for Amazon. He just nearly fainted as you said that.
Yeah, right? No, if he was available and that was something that became copacetic with HBO, I would push for that like no one's
Who
business.
is your dream team? Who do you want?
There's a lot of comic book artists that I really like. I love guys like Olivier Coipel. Jay Lee's already somebody that's doing variant covers for us. I have something I can't show yet, but it will be shared very soon on the Kickstarter by Jay Lee for this newest Kickstarter that we're doing. But I got to sit and listen to John Howe talk about his process before he started working on the Hobbit films at Comic-Con about a decade ago. And it was just awesome to be in his presence and to be learning his process and how he did this. And I learned so much just looking at their artwork. And if I could have a chance to bring either of those fine gentlemen on board, I would be like, let's not hesitate. Let's get these guys involved. Because to me, they draw in that classic style that I love to see. And it just brings it to life on paper. And then you just translate that to film. And I would love that. So, yeah. I would take Alan Lee in a heartbeat.
Awesome. I will, to touch more on Cliff wondering about what Amazon's going to do and should they take a note from Dark Crystal. The one thing we did not talk about is that the same day Dark Crystal came out, Carnival Row, starring our very own Legolas, Orlando Bloom, dropped on Amazon Prime, which is Amazon's big fantasy mythical creature series that the first season of that they already are filming season 2. Like that they've committed to that for Carnival Row.
Already?
Yeah, they started filming that way before this even dropped. It started like a month ago for filming. They've been writing it for the last few months. And I think it's shot beautifully. I love the story. I'm deeply invested. I watched all of that this weekend as well. I can't wait for season 2.
Oh, wow. You got through the whole season of Carnival Row.
And the whole season of Dark Crystal. It was a big weekend for Chelsea. Big weekend.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to watch Carnival Row. I really
Not
do.
only did I get through all of Carnival Row, but I watched half of the season twice because then I had friends that were like, well, wait, I want to watch it. So then I like rewatched with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So does the show start where the comics started with the Untamed?
Yeah, definitely. That's the plan right now. So the graphic novel, The Untamed, is definitely going there. Yeah. So yeah, we're definitely going to be pushing The Untamed is the main first thing that we're doing. So
Keeping the scale of the story intimate is a great help. It is a great help when you're trying to introduce and have inroads to the narrative go in other directions. But having time is something I think you're going to have more of than Amazon does for Lord of the Rings, because the term of their deal was they have to go under the camera within 2 years. They have to get like, woo! They don't even have time to do previs. They don't have all the time that they would like to have to do all the design and the concept on they have to really rush things along to satisfy the conditions of that license.
Of the contract.
And are you under similar constraints at any point?
I mean,
Like-
everyone wants to get going and rolling. Seb's working on the pilot right now.
Yeah,
And-
literally, writing it now.
Yeah, and so things are moving good, and we'll have more to say in the next coming months for sure. But
There's no pressure like you're going to lose the whole deal if you don't start filming tomorrow.
No.
Thank God.
Yeah, no.
That's no fun.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say that's
They're
really
nurturing.
no fun.
They're nurturing the process.
They're nurturing it.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, why is it that the people working with Jennifer Salke and the folks at Amazon have to work so fast?
Didn't that all come from the estate?
That was the term of the deal.
Yeah.
That was the term.
They did spend quite a bit of money on that licensing.
And
Which also was directed by the estate.
Yeah.
It's worth reminding that because MGM and New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers spent too long on the Hobbit film and couldn't get their business sorted out with their legal arguing with each other, that they lost their director, Guillermo del Toro. And that is the Hobbit movie that never was and never will be. So yeah, it's like sometimes time is of the essence, and that might be the reason why the Tolkien estate decided to add in that language to make sure that Amazon Studios wouldn't sit on it for years and not do anything. Maybe. But
We're moving along.
Yeah,
That's all I'm going to say. We're moving along, and
good,
it's going
good,
well.
good.
I couldn't be more thrilled, and we've assembled an awesome team. Prentice Penny has been announced. He's the showrunner for Insecure. He's executive
Awesome.
producing and co-writing the pilot with Sebastian.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we're in good hands, and I couldn't be happier about the entire thing. So yeah, it's good.
Well, that's amazing. We're getting to, we have 2 minutes left of the show, so I feel like, Daryl, you should give all of the shout outs to everywhere people can find you,
Absolutely.
find information
Thank you,
about
guys.
the show, all
Absolutely.
of that.
Well, first I told Justin if he pledges right now, he's going to get a copy of the Niobe Pathfinder book tonight. So it's going to be yours, Justin. If you pledge, I'll make sure you pledge before I hand this over. But guys, please go check out my Kickstarter, www.niobekickstarter.com. Just go to Kickstarter and you'll find it under the comics.
That is Niobe.
Yep.
Niobe Kickstarter.
NiobeKickstarter.com. And you
I-
can send me a message. I'm Daryl May, Daryl May Art on Instagram. You can find me there. And Stranger Comics on Facebook as well, and Instagram. We'll answer any questions you guys have. And I need to tease Stranger's Sword.
Look at that sword. That's the sword that's in
Yep.
the opening story.
Yep, this is
Untamed.
one of our pledges for the Kickstarter. This is Shemlock Jal Usal Uk, Soul of Ice, Stranger's Sword that becomes Niobe's
The
sword.
soul of ice. Who's the
Oh,
dwarf
amazing.
who forges that for him?
Well, this is actually it's a dwarf who gets slaughtered in episode 1 of the Untamed.
Yeah,
At least
he
on
gets
the
slaughtered. Yes, I remember.
I forget
Very
his
early in
name
the
actually.
story.
I'm spacing it. But this is a sword that is very powerful, and it splits into 2. And the statistics for this sword are in the killing floor. It actually, you can hand the other half to Niobe, or anybody for that matter, be 100 miles away, and then instantly summon that person back to your side if you get into
Wow.
trouble.
You know what that reminds me of?
Oh, that's so cool. What?
The sword in Dark Crystal.
Oh
Yes,
yes, which is so cool.
yes.
What I don't know, I can't talk about it because I don't want to spoil it for
You
anybody.
can't talk about what's it called? The something glaive.
Yes.
The dual.
The dual glaive.
The dual
but guys,
glaive.
this sword, Shemlock Jaoso Oak, can be one of your pledges on Kickstarter. You can own a copy of this by pledging on my Kickstarter, and it glows. The runes glow on this when you put it to a black light.
Oh,
It's
that's
super
so
cool. And it's fun for Seb and I because I met him when I was 19. I'm 41, and I was LARPing with weapons like this when our friendship blossomed into a budding HBO career with a series.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
I just wanted the audience to know that it was of dwarf craftsmanship
Yes.
and therefore worthy.
Yes,
therefore,
of course.
all the more worthy.
And we
It's
are
dwarven.
and we are building some other Asunda LARPing weapons as we speak right now. Yeah. So,
Okay.
and we have Niobe miniatures on the Kickstarter, which I don't have with me, but we have the little figurines of Niobe for you miniature gamers as well.
That's
Awesome.
awesome.
Thank
Just
you,
for the
guys.
miniature gamers, not the full-size gamers. I'm kidding.
Right. That's what the swords are for.
I will vouch for The Untamed. For all you Lord of the Rings fans and Game of Thrones fans, you want to read a really good graphic novel and get your teeth into this world with some striking, very painterly
Yeah.
art style.
Yes.
in
And
this
culturally
opening book.
rich.
Yeah, it's
Culturally rich.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's so good. And of course, the great deliciousness is that Sean Bean is already dead at the beginning of this story, and he is coming back for his revenge. And I love a good revenge story.
Yeah.
I love a real good revenge fantasy
So are we
thriller.
hoping
It's
that
good.
Sean Bean will be
good.
casted in this?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be a kick in the pants if Sean
Right.
gets to be part of the casting?
Is that the ultimate dream right there?
It could be, yes.
Could be.
But
Then
yeah,
it's
no.
good.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
What's that?
What did you say, Justin? That's why he sold it to HBO.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's why. Well, yeah, you guys check it out. It's really
Thanks
good
for
stuff.
having me
Absolutely.
and Stranger Comics on the show today, guys. I love you guys, and it's loads of fun to be on here. So.
Thank you so much for being here.
And I love the
Daryl.
Dark Crystal. It's great talking about it tonight.
Right?
Yes,
It's
yes,
fun to be a
yes.
nerd.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you can see what they did right about it.
Yes.
And we have seen other people develop fantasy properties and what they've done wrong.
Yeah.
You're in that sweet
We're
spot.
in a fantasy renaissance right now for,
Yes.
for,
Yes,
for
which I
television,
love.
and I feel very honored to be given a chance to hopefully blow people's socks off over the next coming years with the HBO series.
Well,
So
we
thank
can't
you.
wait. You'll have to keep coming back and giving us
Oh,
updates
yes.
when
Oh,
you
we
can
will.
share things.
We'll get Seb here next time, and maybe I'll join him.
Right?
Please,
The
yeah.
rare moment of the
Yeah.
two. I don't know. It might be too much awesomeness for one podcast.
Right? No.
Very much a
good.
pleasure to have you, Daryl.
Thank you, guys. Thank
Awesome.
you.
And thanks to everybody for joining us today in the chat room and those of you that are commenting or just watching. We see you. We appreciate you. Tune in again next week. If you want to follow our journeys in the meantime, I'm Uncool Rockstar on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you need. Uncool Rockstar. And you can find Cliff at QuickBeam2000. And of course,
Yeah.
follow theonering.net.
Yes. QuickBeam 2000. We don't have much Green Dragon gossip because thank you,
Well,
Shad,
I mean, the entire show was Green Dragon gossip
Yeah,
about
we're
the Dark Crystal. That's
gossiping. But we're in a place where world building is something that these television producers are interested in. Okay, they've seen the payoff and all the Emmy awards that Dark Game of Thrones.
Not
has
to
gotten.
mention the merchandising.
Not to mention merchandise.
Yep.
And you know what's funny? The funny headline I just read earlier today: Game of Thrones producers just as surprised as anyone else at getting any Emmy nominations at all. I'm like, yeah, for season 8. Like, I'm gonna do a Hup face and go. And do Hup the Paladin with this big raspberry.
Podlin.
But, we're in a place of world building. They want to spend the time with you guys.
Yep.
Amazon wants to spend the time with their development team, and they're into this now. So we have to remind ourselves we are the beneficiaries of all this creative effort. Good luck to you.
Thank
and
you.
to everyone.
Thank you, guys. I'll pass the word on
Yes,
to the
very
team.
good. And my best to Sebastian.
Absolutely.
And, Chelsea, thank you for the tip. I'm going to watch Carnival Row.
Yeah, absolutely. For
gonna
those
get
of you
into
that
that.
liked Game of Thrones, it's definitely got as much gore and sex and fantasy as Game of Thrones does.
Oh, dear.
If that was too much for you, Carnival Row might be too much for you. But Orlando does a great job in the series, and all of the cast with him are phenomenal. So.
Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. Wow, aren't we lucky to be here, everybody? So this is it. This is Torn Tuesday. We're going to wrap the show up. And thank you again, Chelsea.
Thank
You're
you.
so awesome. Thank you for letting your Labor Day weekend go that way for 10 hours of Gelflings and Skeksis.
Just so we could talk about it today.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited. There has to be a season 2. Netflix, please, 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 to high heaven above Thra. I mean, to all the 3 sons, that come
Yeah.
into great conjunction over my head right now. Please.
And if anybody
Season
really
2.
wants to talk out Dark
2.
Crystal further or Carnival Row further, find us on Twitter, Instagram. Also, if you
Yes.
join, Facebook has a geek group, your friendly neighborhood geek group. It's run by Scum and Villainy here. We actually have a discussion thread that's all about Dark Crystal. So if you really want to get
Yes.
into it with people that have seen it, join the geek group.
And you guys who run the Trial by Stone Dark Crystal podcast, I want to personally invite you, if you're watching, to come and be part of our conversations. And I would love to come and record and be on your show as well and talk about Thra and Middle Earth and the connections we have to the Journey's quest. The quest style journey of these characters. It connects us in such fun ways. And there's so many glorious things happening. What a great day to be a nerd. It's great stuff. Thank
It
you
is.
again, everybody.
Thanks,
you for being
guys.
here.
Good night. We'll see you next week.